This is the Infrastructure Matters podcast, brought to you by the Futurum Group. We explore the latest developments in hybrid cloud computing and the technology that underpins it. In each episode, we'll dive deep into the latest trends and technologies that are shaping the hybrid cloud computing landscape. The Infrastructure Matters podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. Please do not take anything reflected in this show as investment advice. Now, your co-hosts, Stephen Dickens, Camberley Bates, and Krista Macomber of the Futurum Group.
Hello and welcome to episode 27 of Infrastructure Matters. Hard to believe we're approaching 30 episodes already. My name is Krista Macomber with the Futurum Group, and I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-hosts, Stephen Dickens and Camberley Bates. Stephen, Camberley, thanks so much for joining today. How you doing?
We're good.
Good. We're warm.
The highlight of my week, getting to talk to both of you. I genuinely mean that as well. That wasn't me goofing around.
But it is on Friday.
Yes.
Friday.
Yep.
Maybe we should do this on Hump Day on Wednesday because, since it brightens all of our days.
I know.
Anyway, keep on going, Krista.
A little bit of energy to get through the week, right? All right, absolutely. So I know we have a few announcements to dig into on the episode. I know we're going to be kind of touching on a few different factors spanning kind of data management, some cybersecurity related discussion, and actually, believe it or not, some announcements coming out of tape, the tape storage market. So with that, Camberley, I know maybe to kick it off, you had the great opportunity this week to attend a meeting with the MountainWest CyberSecurity Taskforce in Colorado. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and kind of some of the new thoughts coming out of that meeting?
Well, first of all, what is it? This was started by the Social Security. People are going, why is the Social Security involved with cybersecurity? That's because Social Security were the original people that were hunting down the bank robbers in the 1800s. So they are all tied to the Treasury and the bank robbers and everything else. So, we all think of them as the Secret Service as being part of, did I say Social Security? I did do that, didn't I? The Secret Service is part, taking care of the president, but originally and still they're taking care of our banks as well. So this is a task force that was formed, I think, a good 10 years ago by somebody in there, and they pulled together all the different localities of police, as well as the FBI participates in it. We have university experts that are there, and we have also the vendors that are playing in there. And the idea of this group is to share lots of information about what is going on in the space and assist each other in terms of all of the cybersecurity. So there was a couple of things that came out of there. We had a gentleman from the NCUISAO, which is the credit union organization that deals with security. Brian Hintz, his VP with there, he talked about specifically something called the adversary in the middle phishing services. This is, and what he was really highlighting there, one of the biggest things he was highlighting is how they're breaking multifactor authentication.
Interesting.
Right. Right. So they are breaking it, and how they're breaking
and that's not scary at all.
No.
Right.
No, not at all.
Jeez.
Kind of like, whatever. We just implemented we irritated everybody with multi-factor authentication. And there is something called multi-factor authentication fatigue, which is really screwing things up, as we all know. But basically what it's doing, they're doing some redirects. So they're sending something to you that has, maybe it's a DocuSign, SAP Concur, those kind of things. I think I've gotten to the DocuSign one that was a phishing. And somewhere along the line, there's a click there. It's a redirect to the guy in the middle who is grabbing information, and then he redirects you back. So you don't know this just happened. And they're grabbing the multi-factor, which is a key that can be repeated, And they're also grabbing emails, et cetera, and then sending it around. It was a great chart. It was probably a 20-minute talk about this, how it's being done. But one scary piece, is a scary piece. And when you roll that into the AI being applied to the email phishing and how absolute, it's just skyrocketed stuff that's here. It's a scary situation. So more to get dug into here. Fascinating piece, and I would encourage people that are involved with security. There's task force across the nation. I think there's 8 of them in different geos, and getting involved with them and staying active. They cover everything from child pornography, cyber crime, to the phishing and the ransomware and everything else that goes on. So I will pass after that. There we go.
Scary world we live in.
It really is. And I know, I think that's particularly scary because just coming out of the data security market in general, over the last, call it year, 18 months or so, those access controls have actually been a big focus. I know, Camberley, you were kind of alluding to this, just because there's been the recognition that we're not going to be able to keep up with the attackers, especially considering, Camberley, I know you also mentioned AI and things like that. So it's been, okay, how do we move beyond kind of just the perimeter defenses, kind of build up this zero trust approach, and really, decrease the possibility that the attackers are going to be able to get our information. So very, very scary for sure.
So one of the things that he talked about was something called a YubiKey, YubiKey. However, they're very expensive. They're $40 a piece. So to do something like that across a organization, this gets me back to where we used to have the key, right? At one point in time, we had these special keys that went into our computers. But there we go.
Time will tell. Yep. So, and I know another thing that we wanted to touch on this week was NRF. We were kind of having some conversation, backstage here, so to speak, before we recorded. I know, Camberley, you and Stephen both had some commentary. So why don't we dig into that for our next topic?
Yeah, so the National Retail Federation has its big show, as it calls it, every year in the Javits Center in New York. Runs Sunday through Wednesday. In the sort of second or third week of January. I had the pleasure with Keith Kirkpatrick, another one of our analysts, of going down to that show. Huge tech vendor show focused on the retail sector. So a couple of research notes that Keith and I have authored. I think the interesting things for me were chatting to all the sort of vendors. You got the feeling that last year was a bit of a pause year. I think people were coming out of COVID. Some of the trends were a little unsure. The macroeconomic environment was kind of tough. So chatting to a bunch of the vendors, I spoke to the founder of Scandit. I spoke to the sort of Google teams. I spoke to Oracle. Spoke to a whole bunch of the different vendors. And you kind of got the impression that retail had a tough year. Still growth, but not explosive. I think this year, a lot of people start to already see that the momentum's coming back. The show was packed. I've been the last 2 or 3 years, been before. Show was packed. So good to see some vibrancy. I think that obviously AI was everywhere, from how consumers interact and find things with vector search and RAG and all of the other sort of AI technologies, chatbots, so there was a huge focus there. I think some of the interesting things for me, I got to spend some time with Google around their distributed cloud edge. So trying to get technology into the store without a big store footprint. Having worked retail when I was in college, these are big stores. If you're going to put smart edge technology, shelf edge technology, you're going to put cameras, you're going to put, something like the Amazon just walk out type technology. It puts a huge footprint of just technology into these stores. And there's nobody in the store who knows how to manage it because they're all retail focused. So then you just get into cost, operational challenges. So I thought it was really fascinating what Google did, planning to do with this distributed cloud edge so that you can really cut out the middleman and go directly from the device up to the cloud. I also got to spend some time on the Lenovo booth, and again, they've worked with Google around this Chromebook type, super small form factor designed for far edge type deployments. So you can run a whole smart shelf edge deployment, a camera setup, technology on the storefront. It's got a tiny, and this thing fits on the back of a monitor. It's about the size of a power pack for your phone, but it's actually a server running Chrome OS that then goes.
So this is for running the videos?
Yes, so this would be,
or is this for, because it seems, I know we've gotten really small with our technology, but
this was,
you still have all the retail operation transaction stuff that's going on.
So this was about the size of a big smartphone. It was a kind of this type of size, not much thicker, can be powered off power over Ethernet, so like low power consumption. But it's basically a micro server. You can run a number of cameras off this. You can run a smart shelf edge deployment. You can run your point of sale off it. So if you need a server kind of close to the edge, you can run that off this type of device. $300 with a Chrome OS on it. So huge compute power, ability to run AI down there, and some of the kind of AI stuff. Obviously, we're not talking about NVIDIA GPUs in this thing, but the ability to run some sort of basic AI capability, but on a tiny little form factor that's tiny power draw. So
it's going to run the inference engine. It's going to run, that little box is going to run the inference engine that we trained it on. I mean, one of the projects our Signal 65 Labs is working on is an AI project that has to do with retail. And I can't go into detail because we haven't released the work yet. But the concept, what they're doing right now is they're training to do image recognition on the shelf, is what you're talking about. Conceptually saying, okay, so if I can do that, I can grab that information, I can stock that, order much more easily, or order much more precisely about what I need for that particular shelf. And so we're showing this training capability, and look for it sometime in, I think, February is when we'll release all that information.
I also got the chance to have dinner with the Sony semiconductor team, and they're creating custom silicon. Obviously, Sony with their digital cameras have got the sensors, but what they've done is they've combined the sensor technology with a custom AI chip so that you could do basic, one of the use cases where you can look at a shelf every hour and just be able to say, is that shelf full, yes or no? It's not doing a complex large language model. We're not doing, running ChatGPT down there. What it's doing is basically just got very simple AI to be able to go, is this, we've trained it to know that it needs to look full. Is it full, yes or no? And then be able to ping that directly to the cloud. And, so I think there's some fascinating use cases for AI-powered image sensing in retail, because empty shelves mean people leave the store and they maybe abandon their entire transaction. So the impact can be huge. Not having that one thing you need, you're like, oh, well, I need this. I'm not going to go buy these other 20 things. I'll just go to the supermarket down the road because I absolutely have to have this one thing and they're out of stock. That's real in retail.
That's interesting. Yeah, that was going to be my question, Stephen, was just any kind of even innovative use cases for AI that you kind of maybe heard, either talking to vendors, what they're seeing from customers, or if you got the chance to talk to any customers there. That's really interesting.
One of the really interesting ones was returns. So I got, as I say, I spent a whole bunch of time on the
huge issue.
Well, brick and mortar retailers getting somebody into the store who's maybe bought online is huge. It's a battleground.
It's me too.
Yeah, it's me. I shop at Macy's because of their returns policy, and they're fantastic. Apparently,
Well,
90.
I was just there this week at Lululemon. In fact, I tried to order online, and I did. I ordered the shorts online. I got them. I was trying to match something else I had. I didn't know. And so I get them, and they're not the ones that I want. So I have to go back in there. I'm returning them. And, the best thing I can do is go up to the gal and say, here's the ones I have in my drawer. Can you tell me which ones these are? And so she sat there right there, and we ordered them right there in the store, which was fabulous.
It's that type of experience. So on the Lenovo booth, they had a physical returns kind of box, this big kiosk, and with a smart screen, you can basically just take your shorts, in your case, Camberley. You don't need the packaging. You don't need the return label. You just scan the barcode or the QR code. It creates you the label there and then. You can put it boxless returns is what they called it. So you can put it straight into the sort of pull down the opening and put it straight in. But what they've done, and what I found fascinating, is about 20% of the time, people will go and shop in store with their return. By being able to put AI into that return process and be able to match that up with where you walked in the store before you came to the returns and your previous purchase history, they can create you a coupon that says, hey, Camberley walked past shorts before she came to return shorts. She spent time online looking at shorts. Hey, Camberley, we'd love to give you 25% off today if you buy shorts. It's a one-time coupon only available for today. And what Lenovo's seeing based on its data is that they're increasing it from 20% purchase rate to a 46% purchase rate.
Wow.
And that's huge.
That's
More
a
than double.
conversion. That's
That
a
is
conversion rate I would like to have.
Yeah. So it makes it more frictionless from a returns perspective. You don't have to get a box. You don't have to get the return label. You just walk into the store and figure it out. So that's a great experience. And then if you get a coupon that is contextually rich that makes sense for you to buy, I thought it was fascinating. And Lenovo, that through its consulting organization, got you from beginning to end. You can just walk in as a customer and say, I want to buy that. And they've got you everything from the physical kiosk right through the AI deployment, right through how you would implement it. It was fascinating for me.
And I think that's a great summary too. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that kind of touches on the couple of events that we participated in this week. And I know that there was a few other announcements. We're here in the third week already in January, which is crazy. So we're seeing some announcements start to pick up a little bit. And I know that there were some management changes actually involving Hitachi that we wanted to touch on. Camberley, I know you had some thoughts on that regarding Octavian.
Yeah, so this is the time of year that all the deck chairs get to move around.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, who's going where now,
Yep.
And we're part of that too, because we've had multiple people join our company recently. But this was an interesting one. Octavian Tanase, was SVP of engineering at NetApp for 12 something plus years or whatever. He's flipped over. He's now not flipped. He's come over to Hitachi Vantara, previously known as Hitachi Data Systems, or HDS, a long time ago. And he is going to be their chief product officer. As you probably know, a lot of their engineering is done over in Europe, in Japan, rather. What's interesting about this is that this last fall, and we did talk about this on the pod, is Hitachi changed directions, Hitachi Vantara. They had, many years ago, they had combined this group that was doing digital services work. That was a lot of IoT, smart cities, smart utilities, etc., with what was known as Hitachi Data Systems. They had Pentaho over here. They had Hitachi Data Systems here, bringing these two together to go after this market. And hasn't been outstandingly successful. So they're splitting those groups. In fact, from what I do perceive is that the Hitachi data side, data infrastructure side, it was really the driver of the revenue and the margin that was coming out of them. So in recognizing of that, that group has now been established again as its entity. So we now have this entity that used to be HCS is now Hitachi Vantara and the data side. Sheila Roja is heading that up as a CEO. What's interesting about Sheila is that she was also at NetApp. When she was at NetApp, she was working with George Kurian on transformation of the company. In fact, there's a Harvard business case written about that. And that we're putting that into the research note that we're writing, a link to it if you want to go purchase it. But she was, and this was about, she was driving it with George in terms of the transformation over there. And that was quite a few years ago. So then the other piece of it is what Octavian had done at NetApp was in leading the engineering. Some of the major things that have come out of NetApp over the last 5, 8 years has been the first class citizen at AWS, Azure, and Google, and this other thing called Blue XP, which is data management across clouds on and off-prem. And Hitachi, well-known, super good technology, way behind in terms of where we are going with the hybrid cloud, where we're going with a lot of things, even though the customers love their products, they have not been super advancing. And so this here, between looking at where Sheila is coming from, looking where Octavian is coming from, kind of what they're talking about, I'm going to expect to see them, it will take a while to get out, start to build that data management function, because I think they've got the wherewithal and the brain cells within the company, especially with where they were before, to do what needs to be done to address this next world that we have in terms of the hybrid cloud, the AI, the data management, the systems, and everything else. So I think it's a very powerful play, a powerful move, and very exciting for Octavian to take this on. I can understand why he's done this, because it's a cool job, I think.
For sure. And I think, Kimberly, the other parallel to kind of draw there is that from the perspective of NetApp, the data management, I mean, that's always been kind of closely tied to the storage play. Right? They tend to kind of go very hand in hand. And I think for Hitachi, if they're going to try to build out these capabilities and kind of build this credibility, kind of building from, like you mentioned, that traction and that innovation they already have on the storage side is going to make sense. So it seems to me like both companies, kind of have that similarity there. Like you mentioned, Hitachi certainly can benefit from their perspective. So it'd be interesting to see.
Right, and it continues to be an issue that keeps bubbling. That doesn't keep. We've been talking about data management for a long time, but the data management now has two factors that have people very of great interest. One is the cybersecurity piece. Where are my kids? I need to know where they are when they're attacked. And the second one is the issues around managing data for the AI technology. So I think all timely with where the move is going.
Absolutely. All right. And I know that there was a couple other vendor side announcements, one actually coming out of Seagate, kind of more on the chip side.
Well, it is chip side. So I'm keeping on talking. So you're gonna get bored listening to me. So Seagate announced something called Mosaic, which is their Hammer HDD technology. And so you're kind of going yawn. I'm going to yawn. So both these next two are older technologies. I think that Hammer is the next generation of technology for hard drives. Lots of noise about, HDD is going away. HDD is going away. Guys, the hyperscalers buy 80 to 90% of the hard drives that are out there. And they're the ones that have been pounding on, both WDC and Seagate to get these technologies out, because this is the next generation that they're going to. Last summer we had I did a podcast with Kaz from Pure. We had a lot of discussion about how solid state's going to wipe out, hard drives. The argument, some of that argument is about power and all that stuff and environmental considerations. There's a big argument about which one is more sustainable in terms of the minerals and end of life, et cetera. But anyway, so here we are. Seagate's launched it. We're going to see another generation of this stuff come out. and it's going to be absorbed by mostly the hyperscalers. The second announcement that came out, and again, we're talking about older technology, is tape. Hammerspace, who is in the data management business as well, global file systems, announced tape integration. So basically, they have ability to see from beginning to end, and they're doing this with a couple of vendors, or several vendors, because Data, QStar, Point Software are providing the S3 gateway to be able to do this. So I can move now my data to tape. I can still see it in the file system, global file system that they offer, and they bring to that visibility. So I now have cloud, I have on-prem, I have any kind of systems that I want, and I have this long-term storage, which is tape is having a much like we used to say tape was going to be dead. We've said mainframe was going to be dead.
They've been dying for how many decades now?
Well, it's here and it's had a resurgence. And the biggest battle right now for the tape is with the hyperscalers, because that's what's used for Glacier and Blob and those sort of things. So there's big battles up there, and within that recognition is like, okay, so can we use this technology efficiently and effectively within the operations that we're going to be in? And so I think it's here to stay. It's not going away.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And we still use it on the mainframe.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, it's interesting that just on that space, we're starting to increasingly see people doing backup to the cloud. So, a few vendors that we work with cover that as well. So.
Yeah, but that's not what this. So tape is not being used for backup anymore. That's gone. That's gone.
Archive.
It's archive.
Air gap. Yep.
Air gap and archive is where it's being used. Yep.
And that was kind of what I was going to add. I know, Camberley, you kind of talked about the battle for tape being kind of, cloud deployments. And I know we've seen that there are many instances in customer accounts where they look at the cloud, and for them, that is not an air gap. And they still want that on-premises, tape library, especially given all the ransomware attacks, to be able to kind of have that, that isolation.
And that wraps us right back to the MountainWest CyberSecurity Taskforce.
Which it does. Perfect.
Really slick.
Yep. And with that, I know we're just about, at time here, unfortunately. But Camberley and Stephen, it was a pleasure as always. Like we said, always a great way to kick off Friday and start wrapping the week. And we want to thank everyone for listening. Please make sure to like and subscribe and all those good things to make sure that you don't miss any episodes. And we look forward to chatting with you next week. Thanks so much.